What's up, moviegoers? Welcome back to another video on Degenerate, where we're going to be talking about Samus Ramus.
That sounded like it hurt when you hit your legs.
I didn't. I was just doing it for emphasis.
Oh, that makes sense. Well, something that needs emphasis today, other than hitting like and that subscribe button if you haven't already, because we are over 105,000 subscribers, thank you very much to all of you, is that Spider-Man 4, or at least a continuation of the Sam Raimi Spider-Man, is looking more and more possible as all of the pieces and people that could be involved sound like they're a little bit excited for it. We have a couple of quotes we wanted to cover today and things we wanted to talk about, because since No Way Home, a big point of contention and question has been, is there a future for, Spider-Man characters like Andrew or Tobey? And it's interesting because recently Morbius came out, and in one trailer they had Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man in the background in a poster, and then it was recently revealed that was actually cut from the movie, so I'm not really sure why they did that, but...
Well, boy, oh boy, would that have brought in much more money if they'd have done that.
Yeah, it's kind of odd, because no one
Disney, I don't want money.
No, yeah, I mean, I feel like this one is on Sony. I don't really know what's going on with them, because that's completely in their ballpark. But I will say that Sam Raimi recently, who made the original Spider-Man films with Tobey Maguire, actually said in an interview with Fandango, "I've come to realize after making Doctor Strange that anything is possible. Really anything in the Marvel Universe, any team-ups. I love Tobey, I love Kirsten Dunst. I think all things are possible." This was pretty much a response to if he wanted to bring back those characters. And he did actually go on to say, "I don't really have a story or a plan. I don't know if Marvel would be interested in that right now. I don't know what their thoughts are about that. I haven't really pursued that, but it sounds beautiful. Even if it wasn't a Spider-Man movie, I'd love to work with Tobey again in a different role." Mm-hmm. It's also worth noting that, before this, Tobey Maguire had basically insinuated that he was very happy to be back and that he had needed this break. He didn't really say it quite that way, but we saw his lifestyle. We saw a lot of issues that he was having with gambling and other stuff.
And the paparazzi.
And it really seemed like he just needed to work behind a camera and in some smaller roles for a while, because that was a very stressful, situation despite the money. But he was excited to be back for No Way Home. And it's worth mentioning, finally, that in an interview with Gizmodo, Sam Raimi's Spider-Man producer Grant Curtis actually talked about wanting there to be another movie in that universe. He said, "The Spider-Man movies we made were an incredible opportunity career-wise. As a fan, I love the narratives that were generated from those 3 movies. There were other stories within those movies that did not get told. I hope someday, as any Spider-Man fan would tell you, that all those stories come out and that narrative continues."
Yeah, I got a lot of high hopes for, because we're all assuming that this movie should come out at the very least. I got a lot of high hopes for it. First of all, it was my first time seeing these movies, before we went to see No Way Home. We sat on the couch and we watched them all together.
Yeah, we kind of had a marathon of all the Raimi and the Amazing Spider-Man ones as well.
And it was great. I loved everything, kind of except for Mary Jane, mostly, because, I talked about that before, about how I kind of think she's a bit of a whiny B-word.
Yeah.
But other than that, I have some really big high hopes. I'm excited to go to the movie theater for the first time as, a Tobey Maguire film is playing. And, I'm really hoping that they continue on that whole Mysterio thing that they wanted to do with Bruce Campbell, because I found that to be very interesting, and I really like Bruce Campbell a lot. And I'm kind of hoping that they show us a little bit more with Mary Jane and redeem her character a bit more, because I really like Kirsten Dunst, especially as an actress. I think she's great, and I think that they could make her character a lot better and give her something better. And another thing that I really want to see is, what happened to J. Jonah Jameson's son who just got left at the altar? That sounds like a supervillain story to me.
I don't really want John Jameson back, but I suppose
I want him back.
I suppose they could. Here's the weird thing, though, with this. Raimi did say that he doesn't have a story or any plans, but like was actually mentioned by Grant Curtis, there were plans for a Spider-Man 4. There was everything kind of laid out. Now, it was a rough outline with rough ideas, and what's interesting about it is that they were actually well in development of certain things around that movie. It was recently leaked. There was a Spider-Man 4 movie game that was being produced to go alongside the movie.
That they should put out still.
Yeah, well, you can get it through different means online that I'm not going to link, but it's out there. Very easy to find even on YouTube. But one of the things with that is they were, like you said, they were going to bring back Bruce Campbell. He was the announcer in the wrestling match in 1, he was the doorman in 2, and he was the diner manager or seating manager or whatever you want to call him, a hospitality guy in 3. And he was actually going to come back and be revealed to be Mysterio. And it was kind of going to be like a running gag that he had been this master of disguise the whole time. And then he was caught by Spider-Man relatively quickly at the beginning of Spider-Man 4, where it would then kind of pivot to Vulture as the main villain. Now, it's worth mentioning that Raimi left because of what happened with Spider-Man 3. Even though he assumes responsibility for that, Sony really pushed him to rush that script. They pushed him to include Venom. I like Venom, but he probably shouldn't have technically been in that movie because Raimi didn't want to tackle that subject matter. So I think it kind of did compromise the integrity of the film a bit. And he was sort of being pushed into a situation where they wanted him to do that again. Like, shoehorn in things he didn't want, rush him to finish the script. And he was like, I'm not going to make what I consider another bad movie. I'm good. And he left. And after that, you know, he basically just kind of went on to do other things. Now, Sam Raimi's not just known for this. He's also known for The Evil Dead, Army of Darkness, and all kinds of other stuff. And now Doctor Strange, Multiverse of Madness, which we're excited for.
Oh, yes.
But what we're getting at with this is that I think our biggest question since No Way Home has been less even about Tom Holland, because they're obviously going to shovel money at Tom. He'll be back. They've even already said they're working on more movies. But what's going to happen with Andrew and Tobey? I mean, Tobey seems almost ironically more excited to be back than Andrew, because Andrew left almost on personal terms. You know, he got to Japan, he got sick after his flight, he didn't go to the Sony, I don't remember what it was, press conference in Japan. Japanese people, not to be an asshole, are very, very concerned with like honor and how they look. And I would say far more than Americans, not like surface level, but in terms of if they feel dishonored, especially at a corporate level. And the CEO of Sony Japan had felt dishonored and felt like this was disrespectful. So he basically advocated to kick Andrew to the curb. What's funny about it, though, is after how ridiculous the production was of Amazing Spider-Man 2, again, with Sony really kind of getting their hands in the cookie jar and trying to force a bunch of elements to set up like 50 movies.
Sony, learn your lessons.
They won't. I don't understand why Sony doesn't learn their lesson, but they just don't. But when it comes to them, you know, they kind of pushed away the 2 previous casts of Spider-Man. I mean, they pushed away Raimi and the Raimi cast under him, like Maguire and all those other people. They pushed away the Amazing Spider-Man cast, obviously, and all the people under it as well.
And then they tried to take away Tom Holland's Spider-Man from the MCU.
Yeah,
remember?
I there was kind of like a whole thing where they were talking about completely pulling him out of there too. I mean, like, at the end of the day, Sony can make fun movies. Into the Spider-Verse is great. Obviously, I enjoy the Venom movies, even though I think they're bad. I think they're really fun. But what's weird about this to me is just kind of probably all the hoops you'd have to go through with this. I do think that Marvel is looking more and more interested in the multiverse, though, like the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Probably because they don't have characters like RDJ's Iron Man anymore. They don't have characters like Chris Evans' Captain America, and even Hemsworth's Thor is getting up there in age. I mean, you can't do this you can't do this kind of physical role forever.
He's only like 30-something.
I know, but it's very, very hard and strenuous on your body. And the types of workouts you have to do, you even look at someone like Tom Holland, he's in his 20s and he's tired. I mean, this is a hard job. They're very well paid for it, but it's not something that a lot of these guys want to do forever. So if you brought Tobey back, how do you do that? You know, like, it's very physical.
But I am in love with Chris Hemsworth.
We all know.
Don't you dare talk bad about him. He's going to be in the industry for the next 50 years. And Marvel, I'm looking at you. If you don't keep him there, you're getting it.
Now, here's what I'm saying with this. I think that if you bring him back, it has to have a purpose. I don't want to be able to tell that you're swapping, you know, to a body double every single time he does anything action-oriented. And I don't want to see the trademarked Marvel CGI over-reliance. Those are kind of
Tobey
things...
Maguire's movie?
Yes, those are things that I'm a little worried about with if this did come back. I mean, you'd have to give Raimi pretty much complete control. So then you have questions of, like, would Feige allow that? I guess kind of my personal idea, just me, not pitching a movie is, if you're going to do something like this, or like Andrew Spider-Man again, keep it in their universe. I don't think Feige or Marvel would give too much of a shit if you're messing with those universes that are dead, right? I mean, like, as long as it's not messing up their plan for the MCU, what do they care? And then if they want to bring back Tobey or Andrew for, like, the next Avengers movie or something, or some multiverse event, they just chuck, millions of dollars at them, and they will come back.
Yeah.
I mean, that's kind of
it would be pretty easy to do.
That's kind of my thing. Is like, you don't have to necessarily bring Tobey into the MCU and then have him join the Avengers and go to Stark Tower or whatever.
No.
He can kind of just do his own thing in his own universe.
What if he becomes the new Iron Man?
Oh man, now that would piss people off.
I think that would be hilarious.
He shows up, and in the end credit scene, he says he's Iron Man Jr. Yeah. And this is his son, and out comes Tom Holland.
Yeah.
It's like the fan idea where they said, like, it's the stupidest idea ever, and I feel mean for shitting on this because we have our own, but it's like the fan idea where people said, wouldn't it be cool if, like, when Tom Holland's Spider-Man sees Tobey Spider-Man without the mask, he goes, Uncle Ben? And they imply he looked like Uncle Ben. I just remember how cringe it was. It was on the level of Mace Windu is Snoke.
And that is
for
really
Star
funny.
Wars.
That is really funny.
But yeah, I don't know. I mean, I guess I'm wondering, Jill, I kind of said what I wanted, not an over-reliance on CGI. I want you to talk about that a little bit too, because you said something about the costumes that I thought was really interesting, where it looked like you were in the room with those characters, like with the webbed suit for Spider-Man of Tobey Maguire and stuff versus now.
Yeah, I mean, here's the thing. I've always been really into fashion in general and costume designs and such. And some of my favorite costumes are on superheroes where they actually, give them material. It's not just CGI'd on. That was a lot of what Tom Holland's fans had a problem with, is he just kind of had a CGI suit the whole time. It didn't look like real, and something I enjoy about Spider-Man in general is just, like, all of the different suit combinations he can have, and the way he looks in it. I know that sounds weird. I just love a man in tights.
Well, you also like the fact that it looked like a real suit too.
Yeah, like you can touch it.
Yeah, it didn't look like it was just a computer generated effect. I mean, I think this is something that you and I personally don't have a big problem with the CGI in the MCU usually. Like, people will go on Twitter and they'll post, like, the lowest resolution in action shot of it and be like, look how shit this looks. For us, usually, it's not really a big deal, but I prefer practical effects.
Yeah. I mean, I think the CGI looks really good, but that's because it's Disney. They're shoveling money at these people. But, I prefer when things look more realistic, because no matter how hard you try with the CGI, a few years are going to go by and it's going to look old. Just like with video games from, like, 5 years ago, there's still some really good video games, but they don't look like how they do now, like with Elden Ring that just came out.
The technical specifications change.
Yeah.
Whereas, like, even if the material is still good, like the core of a game and the gameplay and the story, or the core of a movie and its story, like, you watch A New Hope and you see George Lucas added in a bunch of banthas in the background with CGI and they look like garbage. You can just tell.
But it looked good for its time.
Yeah, I mean, at the time it impressed people, but it's one of those things where I think you have to be careful and use that technology where it fits and
sparingly.
not overdo it. And so I think if they were going to bring this back, they'd have to do that. You would have to compensate Tobey, I'm sure, very, very well. So, remain a question of if that's worth it for anybody, and if the cast would even really be willing or wanting to come back. I do think with this whole thing, you have to be really kind of careful. Like, this is a minefield, the whole thing with the Tobey Maguire Spider-Man, this is beloved. It's not just a nostalgia thing. Like, there's tons of people who love this for nostalgic purposes. They grew up with it. So you're not only opening a can of worms with people's childhood version of this character, which is why it was already risky to bring him back in No Way Home. You had to do right by him. Now you're going to focus on a whole movie and you have to do right by him, and he's older. So you kind of have to balance all these different things. I mean, I think it's very possible, but I sadly feel like we live in a world where I could see Sony being more interested in Morbius than interested in sharing a piece of the pie with this whole thing and having the Tobey Spider-Man come back.
That's ridiculous. Sony just doesn't want money.
I know, it's stupid, but that's them.
I wanted to say that the fact that Tobey is older, I kind of think makes it more interesting, since Spider-Man is such a physical character. I think it would be very interesting to see a story like that, since we haven't gotten one like that on screen yet, of him being a little bit older and having a little bit of a harder time with this. And personally, I think the practical effect that they should bring back for this movie is getting like a little rag doll that looks kind of like Tobey and like throwing it across the street, and it looks like he flew.
I really don't know why I asked you to be here.
That was a joke.
I was going to say, though, that I think that there is a perfect opportunity to expand his universe.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I mean, like, he has a daughter in the comics, at least in some timelines, which is named after May. It's May Day. That's her name.
Oh, I like that.
And
that would be
she's
fun.
SpiderGirl.
Mm-hmm.
And people have mentioned before that there is an opportunity there. You know, especially, like, this is going to sound like a very corporate, let's bank off of diversity thing, but I'm just saying, like, corporations do that. I would be really shocked that they wouldn't want to go make, like, one big last Tobey Maguire movie with action, you know, pay him just out the ass, and then kind of transition in that same universe to something like Spider-Girl.
That would be epic.
And then you could bring back Tobey maybe one more time in like a Marvel MCU team-up movie, but you kind of expand his standalone Spider-Man universe with Spider-Girl, and you have her as like the Spider-Man of that universe. People are going to say like, that sounds like shit. Why are you using a woman to replace... No, it's a good comic. It was actually a well-written comic.
I think it sounds
so,
great.
So if you actually did it the way the comic did, instead of just like, we need a woman here, but I'm saying you follow that structure and you make a good story, I think it could be very interesting, because that Raimi-verse had a lot of unique takes on characters, kind of like the Spider-Girl future did in the comics, and I think you could kind of combine those ideas really well. You bring Sam Raimi back in, Tobey Maguire got paid just completely. If you want to, you can have him come back in as the alive father Peter Parker, and if you don't, you don't. You know, like, it's a very easy way to do it. And then you have that multiverse door open.
Yeah.
Because Marvel's so interested in their multiverse.
And I'm interested in it too.
Well, and they want to do stuff with different versions of it. Like Doctor Strange. You see like 4 Doctor Stranges in the trailer for Doctor Strange Multiverse of Madness. They're all different people, but they're all Doctor Strange from different universes. Why couldn't we see that with Spider-Man?
Yeah, and they even had that giant lead up with Wanda Vision, bringing Scarlet Witch into that and having her do magic too.
Yeah,
you know?
I mean, it's just an interesting idea. I mean, yes, you can overdo it with the multiverse and kind of open too many doors and confuse people, but they've already opened this idea. Like, Loki completely focused on it. Multiverse of Madness is going to focus on it. No Way Home, it had a huge focus on it. What If?
I think it's
huge
exciting.
Focus. I think it's kind of the biggest thing that the MCU has going for it right now.
It's different.
Yeah,
You know,
and
no other movie studio has done something like this before, in my opinion.
yeah, not nearly as well. And I think DC is trying now with The Flash, but between the Ezra Miller hullabaloo and everything going on with Michael Keaton Batman coming back, and then the Leslie Grace Batgirl, and whether or not people are excited for that, and the Snyderverse movement and everything, like, Marvel's in a position where people have accepted the multiverse. You know, so like they can bring in these different versions. I think DC is in a position where people are trying to, other people are actively rejecting it, and some people are just outright confused by it because it's been so random.
Yeah, I'm one of the people who'd probably fall under a little bit confused, you know, and especially if I was somebody who didn't follow the media, because I never used to be someone who did that.
Well, I talk your ear off about it.
Yeah, but if I didn't follow the media because of you, like, I'd just be so confused about what the heck is going
like,
on.
why is Michael Keaton back? Or like, what's going on with Yeah, I think
I'd just be concerned.
Well, the thing is with Marvel, they've been able to organically introduce the multiverse. You know, I know some people don't care. Fine, that's cool. Like, I'm not shitting on you. I get it. But generally, I think people are interested in it because they organically introduce it through Loki and through Endgame. Like, they slowly introduced it.
Yeah.
Endgame kind of gives you the idea of multiple timelines. Then all of a sudden, Loki gets into the idea of multiple realities with those timelines. And then you get into the idea of that with No Way Home and now Multiverse of Madness. Like,
and
it's
using
even in the
spells and stuff.
yeah, it's even in the title, Multiverse of Madness. Like, they're not afraid of the concept.
Yeah, and they did it really well. You know, that you got to write this stuff well and at first simplify it enough to where the audience can get into it, and then you make it more complicated.
Yeah, I think that you need to be careful with it, because what I don't want to see is just some crap where it's like, say they kill off, you know, Black Widow, and then there's another Black Widow that comes back and just takes her place in the main timeline, and then, like, you know, Iron Man dies, and then a new Iron Man just takes his place, and, like, it's the same, like, it's Tony Stark from a different reality. I don't want that, but what I'm saying is you have these characters come in for a little bit and do something and make sense and work, and I think that with Spider-Man, it's a perfect opportunity for that, too.
And at the end of the day, you know, even if we don't get a Spider-Man 4 like we all really want, Hopefully, we'll still see Tobey Maguire again, grimacing at the paparazzi.
Yeah, I hope so. And I hope we'll see him back again as Spider-Man, either in this or in some kind of team up. Because the MCU's multiverse, it really does open the door to bring back iconic characters from movies such as Fant Four Stick.
No.
Oh, sorry. I got my franchises mixed up. The final thing I do want to say with this, Jill's grimacing because we're going to have to edit this whole thing. The final thing I do want to say with this, though, that I hope is that we also see Andrew. You know, we've talked about Amazing Spider-Man before, so this video isn't about that. But Tobey did get his 3 movies. As much as I want to see him back, he got his 3 movies and his very large cameo in a 4th. Andrew kind of got screwed. He got like one really good movie, or like one fun good movie, and then he got a movie that I think is still fun and we still like, but was absolutely ramrodded by like Sony penis.
Yeah.
Like executives were like getting in there, like double, triple teaming the thing and really.
Yeah, that ending was really rushed.
And they were pushing so many different ideas in it where it was like, well, we need to set up a Sinister Six movie and we needed to set up Amazing Spider-Man 3 and like show Venom, the symbiote in the background, Ox tentacles, quick. It's like so much crap. That's Felicia Hardy. She becomes the Black Cat so we can do a spin-off. And it was like, you've done 2 Amazing Spider-Man movies. You only had a 3rd one planned, and you wanted to do like 50 offshoots before it.
Yeah.
And they didn't even get any of those off the ground.
Which is a shame.
Now they have all these different, separate, not connected universes. So I guess what I'm getting at with this is you have the opportunity to fix these things. You bring back Andrew, and you make the Venom videos, the Venom movies set in his universe. You bring back Tobey, and you expand his too, and then you can do the multiverse.
Well, do you think Andrew would even come back if they shoveled money at him? Because it just kind of seemed like he was a bit done with the role, especially after all of the bad flack he got when he was Spider-Man, and people were just kind of bullying him.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's one of those things where now that he has come back, I could see it being more likely. I wouldn't have expected him to want to come back for No Way Home, just from the way he talked about the role and how much crap it was and how much he had to deal with during it. Now, granted, these guys are making millions of dollars, so like they have a higher tolerance for bullshit than we do.
If they want, I could put on a wig and get a little bit skinnier and pretend to be Andrew Garfield and take the money. If, Sony wants me, I'm willing.
There's already a ton of cosplayers doing that, so I think you've missed your niche. But, I don't know, I guess, like, I don't want to drone this on and on because I kind of am, but I guess I just am really excited about the possibility of this and it being more and more possible sounding because these are the versions of these superheroes I grew up with. I talked about it before, but things that got me into Spider-Man as a character were like the Ultimate Spider-Man comic books. I was the perfect age when those were coming out. Their characterization's a little weird, but they really did get me into Spider-Man and the lore and those universes and also
Tobert McGirt.
Yeah, Tobert Yogurt's movies, with Sam Raimi. I think those were the things that kind of got me almost into superheroes as a whole. So I really have a special place in my heart for these and the X-Men Fox movies, despite their problems.
Do you know how badly I want those back? The fact that they're not being made anymore literally, like, hurts my heart.
I know, but even though they did get kind of bad a lot of the times, like, I really just had a special place in my heart for these types of movies, and I think that they provided enough different outside of the Marvel formula that, we've come to see now. And they kind of provided a bit of a competition and something different in terms of viewership that you didn't get when you just went to an MCU movie. And it's kind of a shame that we don't see those unique universes as much. I hope that opening the door of the multiverse also opens the door to bring back those unique universes. Yes, I get that there's going to be a few people that it confuses, but if you look at things like Venom, and you look at things like the Multiverse of Madness pre-order tickets, they are selling very well.
Yeah.
I don't think people are confused enough that they're not buying in.
Yeah. And at the end of the day, people are still fans of these characters, even if they are a little confused. People who are, like, middle-aged, like your parents and stuff, who don't get it but love superheroes, they're still going to buy a ticket and watch it anyway.
Or they were 25 when Tobey Maguire Spider-Man 1 came out and they saw it, and that's kind of their superhero.
Yeah.
Like, there's going to be people coming back to The Flash for Michael Keaton, whether that movie turns out to be good or not. Like, that's just, the nostalgia is a real thing. And I think that they are missing an opportunity if they don't go for it.
I completely agree.
So anyway, let us know what you think in the comments down below. Do you want to see these movies back? I'd be interested to hear, do you want to see this back more or less than Andrew Garfield? I think the perfect Chad-like answer is both. Don't make me pick. But, you know,
I
there are a
think-
lot of people who have a preference.
I think the true Chad answer is neither. I want to go to Jill's Etsy instead.
That's an excellent point, Diane. Thank you for pointing that out. Because actually, we do have an Etsy shop over on Etsy. It is Enchanted Glamor. It is in the link down below. Do you have a loved one, a significant other, maybe even a victim of stalking that you would like to send a present to? Because we have started the Martha collection. Why'd you say that name? Sorry, I had an outburst from my soul there. But these use freshwater pearls and amazing, beautiful beads in the shapes of roses, red, beautiful roses, the color of love, to portray a tragic ensemble of jewelrific fashion. Now, it's interesting because there's a lot of different things over on that Etsy shop.
A lot of them contain semi-precious things.
Or precious.
Or precious. You know, they're affordable, too.
You've got a lot of different necklaces. You've got amazing bracelets.
What does the president have to
Earrings.
say about it?
I've got to be honest with you, I would definitely recommend Enchanted Glamor for everybody to check out. It goes to help support the Degenerate J channel, and maybe the tax people won't be a dick next year and they won't just call it a hobby. They'll say it's an income.
Thank you,
If we're
Mr.
able to
President.
sell enough, we never know. But it's very interesting. I highly recommend you check it out. Link in the description down below. And do you want to see Tobey Maguire come back as Spider-Man? I definitely would like to see him. Very disappointed he wasn't there on January 6th, but perhaps the new movie could debut on that day. It would be what I'd call an insurrection at the theater. I would love it. I'd love to see it. A whole stampede, that's what they're calling it. Be sure to leave a like and subscribe for more content if you haven't already. 105,000 subscribers. That's more than Joe Biden's channel. That's all I'm saying. I hope you have a fantastic day today. And as
make
always,
America
everyone,
great
stay shway. Uh-oh, we don't want to say that. We're going to get in trouble. We don't say my tagline anymore. We say stay shway now.